Today's local and national news from Thailand via the fabulous Pattaya Media Group. And if you'd be kind enough to like and subscribe, here's a tip for you to get the very latest news from us every day. When you subscribe, click on the button that says All, and then every day you'll get an update straight from us. A detailed police report has been issued in the capital after investigations into a shooting between what was originally assumed to have been simply two gangs from two rival tech schools, which led to the shooting of one and an innocent lecturer shot with a stray bullet, both whom died. Now the Metropolitan Police Bureau is increasingly convinced that in fact at least one side were a part of an organised crime gang that's grown to see levels of hierarchy within it, training in violence and responsible for several local crimes. An estimated 80 to 90 people are believed to be involved in the well-funded gang, which operated with such slickness that in the recent shooting, the motorbike used was quickly taken away on a truck, resprayed in a different colour and sold far away from the city. That in itself appears to show that the crime was not only premeditated, but also planned to a high degree. In Prachinburi, customs officers put on display tobacco, cigarettes and booze with a street value of over 75 million baht, all seized from packages sent in the mail. Thousands of packages were seized after scans revealed dubious content, and they're assumed to have been mailed from Cambodia and due to be sold on to the public. Often Cambodian booze and tobacco is fake, especially that sold on the borders, and despite recognised brand labels, the actual content is not what you might expect. Here in Thailand now, even posting a letter requires proof of ID, but as the packages weren't collected, there's no word if those dealing in Prachinburi will be caught. As a series of influenza outbreaks in China is consumed by newspapers globally and here, so the official word is that it's simply a version of the flu, exacerbated by the fact that for so long people have avoided viruses due to the COVID era. Here too in Thailand, several similar viruses have hit many, including this newsreader, lasting for many for upwards of 2 weeks before recovery. China, though, is seeing reports of tens of thousands either in emergency rooms or actually hospitalised. Here, in Thailand, that is not the case. From China, we hear that many, if not most of the cases treated, have been in children, and the WHO team, as in previous times, sat on the wire with a report that concludes that any link between clusters of undiagnosed pneumonia and a rise in respiratory infections in China is unclear as of now, but has requested data from the Chinese state. Reality is, this is likely to be simply an annual influenza or pneumonia virus which we see globally each year. But many are acting on the side of caution, and mask wearing across Asia is becoming more common than before. 97 billion baht has been earmarked by airport authorities in Thailand for expansion and improvement at 6 international airports, preparing them to see, in some cases, a 70% increase in arrivals over the next decade. The plans were due to go into effect prior to the COVID era, but we're told funding is available again. And so it's spend, with Bangkok's main airport planning another 15 million arrivals through a new passenger building, a new terminal at Don Muang that will see a similar increase in footfall, and both Chiang Mai and Phuket seeing improvements too. Good news for Thailand as exports in October rose 8% on last year's figures, according to the Commerce Ministry, signalling perhaps a continued increase in trade abroad. Meanwhile, the same ministry announced that the export of agricultural products and foodstuffs grew by 9.3% year-on-year, with the fruits of industry increasing by close to 6% in the same period. The Americans have the legend of Johnny Appleseed. Thailand? Well, yesterday saw reports of the passing of a former police lieutenant at the age of 77. His story? Well, in the poorest of regions, Sisaket, he spent much of his life planting seedlings across the region. People thought him crazy until those seedlings became saplings and then fully grown trees bearing fruit. Reports claim that during the course of his lifetime he planted some 3 million trees in what had been an arid and quite barren region, but now is quite the garden of the northeast. Meanwhile at home, and Thailand yesterday celebrated Loy Krathong across the nation and of course in our own regions, seeing adults and children often dressed for the occasion, floating their krathongs on the rivers, lakes and even the ocean. In rural areas, donations were collected for local temples and parades began before noon. Locally, the 2 biggest events, both on Mapachan Lake, were well attended, and for city dwellers, the beaches were awash with those floating their boats. For Pattaya City Hall, the final clean-up begins today. After 3 days of fireworks and more, the frontage was left a mess with litter everywhere. That, though, was addressed yesterday morning, and this morning too has seen clean-up crews begin the task of hauling away truckloads of waste, from food wrappings to bottles and more, to leave the beaches once again pristine. Krathongs washed up on the tide will continue to be a slight nuisance for the next week, but most by tonight, well, they'll be gone. And with the Met Office promising highs today of just 29 degrees, dropping down to 24, another overcast day with sun peeping through the cloud at times. Local and national news today from Fabulous 103 FM and Fabulous Pattaya Media Group. And to get a notification every time we release another bulletin or program, like and subscribe to our channel, Fabulous Pattaya Media Group, by using the link below.